Namaskar. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the NAM summit a short while ago via video conference, and the Prime Minister said that India's democracy, discipline and decisiveness have shown the world how a country which is home to 1/6 of humanity has dealt with the coronavirus. So we'll be discussing this and other related subjects in News Night tonight. Let's begin with the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi participates in the non-aligned summit on tackling COVID-19 meeting via video conference, calls on NAM countries to remain inclusive in their efforts against the epidemic, hails India's democratic model, says that democracy, discipline, decisiveness have come together to create a genuine people's movement. PM Modi says even as the world fights COVID virus, some people are busy spreading other deadly viruses such as terrorism, fake news and doctored videos to divide communities and countries. Three CRPF jawans martyred in Handwara Jammu and Kashmir incident in Kajiabad. CDS Bipin Rawat tells Doordarshan News that Pakistan will be given a befitting reply. Government has given permission to bring Indians stranded abroad back home. Their return will begin in a phased manner from May 7. The return to be on board airplanes and naval ships currently abroad. The Indian Embassies and High Commissions will prepare the lists. The railways are not charging any fare from workers who are seeking to return to their homes during the lockdown. 85% of the charges being borne by the railways. The state government's expected to pay the remaining 15%. Shramik trains are being operated on the request of state governments. No open sale of tickets as state government will decide who can travel. The BJP rebuts the Congress's criticism on tickets for migrant workers, says that the Gandhi family is playing needless politics, alleges that some opposition-ruled states have made migrants pay their train fare even though the railways has subsidized the ticket costs. On the first day of the lockdown 3.0, several manufacturing companies have resumed operations. Many retailers opened their shops. Union Health Minister criticizes Delhi government for rushing into opening of liquor shops despite city being in the red zone. Several shops closed in many places due to non-compliance of social distancing norms. The preliminary examination of the civil services, which was scheduled for May 31, has been postponed. The Union Public Service Commission says that the exam and interview cannot be conducted at the current time, and the situation will be reviewed on May 20 before a fresh date is announced. And coronavirus cases increased rapidly worldwide. So far, over 35 lakh people have been infected with the coronavirus, and more than 2,48,000 people have died. More than 11,58,000 people infected with COVID-19 in America, and 67,000 of those have turned fatal. Namaskar and welcome to the news. I'm Mark Lynn. Let's begin with our top story. And as the world is fighting against COVID-19 pandemic, various organizations are joining hands to carve out solutions to come out of the global health crisis. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated in the non-aligned summit on tackling COVID-19 meeting via video conferencing. And the Prime Minister called on the NAM countries to remain inclusive in their efforts against the pandemic. And he hailed India as a leader as humanity faces its most severe crisis in many days.
NAM should call upon the international community and the World Health Organization focus on building in developing countries. We should ensure equitable, affordable and timely access to health products and technology for all. We should develop a platform countries to pool our experience, best practices, crisis management protocols, research and resources. Excellencies, in the founding spirit of movement, let us aim today to come together, not grow apart. Each of us can be saved from the pandemic only if we all are. Let us work as partners towards an inclusive and cooperative global response.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi also said that even as the world fights COVID virus, some people are busy spreading other deadly viruses such as terrorism, fake news and doctored videos to divide communities and countries.
Some people are busy spreading other deadly viruses such as terrorism, such as fake news and doctored videos to divide communities and countries. But today, I want to focus only on the positives.
And India has talked about its democratic model on COVID containment at the NAM meeting. The Prime Minister said that India has shown how democracy and discipline can come together to create a genuine people's movement.
During this crisis, we have shown how democracy, discipline and decisiveness can come together to create a genuine people's movement.
So here's a quick look now at the top 10 takeaways of the Prime Minister's address. The Prime Minister slammed Pakistan without naming it at the NAM summit, and he said that even as the fight of COVID virus, some people are busy spreading other deadly viruses such as terrorism, fake news and doctored videos to divide communities and countries. The Prime Minister also said that India promoted coordination in immediate neighborhood on COVID-19. NAM can help promote global solidarity, and it has been the world's moral voice. NAM should call on international community and WHO to build health capacity in developing countries. Let us aim to come together, not to grow apart. India has sent medical supplies to over 123 countries, including 59 NAM members. The Prime Minister began paying condolences to all those who lost loved ones due to COVID, says that humanity faces its most serious crisis in decades, and we need a new template also of globalization based on fairness, equality, humanity. We also need to promote human welfare and not focus on economic growth alone. Many countries organize military drills, but India has taken the initiative to organize disaster management drills. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also mentioned about India's efforts in combating COVID-19. Let's listen in.
India's civilization sees the whole world is as one family. As we care for our own citizens, we are also extending help to other countries. To counter COVID-19, we have promoted coordination in our immediate neighborhood, and we are organizing online training to share India's medical expertise with many others. India is regarded as a pharmacy of the world, especially for affordable medicines. Despite our own needs, we have ensured medical supplies to over 123 partner countries, including 59 members of NAM.
Well, and let's put this all into perspective. We are joined by Dr. Sriram Cholia, Professor and Dean at the Jindal School of International Affairs, joining us via Skype. Dr. Cholia, thanks for being with us. So, the Prime Minister describes NAM as the moral voice of the world, and also, you know, India playing a very significant role, 1/6 of the world's humanity, but blending democracy, discipline and decisiveness in showing a path, in a sense, to the world on how to deal with COVID. Put that into context for us.
That's right, Mark. We know non-aligned movement in a way has outlived its purpose after the Cold War ended, because it was, at the time when the world was divided into Eastern and Western blocs.
Yes.
But nonetheless, it has continued as a forum. And I think what is more important is not whether it is aligned with one power or the other today, but rather that it is the largest grouping of developing countries. 120 member states of NAM out of 193 members of the UN, which means that the majority of international community is a non-aligned movement. And interestingly, India is a prominent developing country and has always been a leading force in NAM, while China has not been ever a member of NAM. So in that sense, there are many advantages we have with this forum, and it is continuing in a new form. And today, Prime Minister obviously has attended a NAM summit for the first time through virtual means. In the past, we used to send, a vice president and so on.
Yes.
But he has attended because he realizes that this is an important forum through which we can promote what he called this global solidarity, and this promote the cooperative gene. So right now, there's a lot of division and heartburn and ill feelings and narrow nationalism. And Prime Minister, I think he laid out a very broad vision of India as a promoter of multilateral global cooperation through forums like NAM. He's also been very active in the G20 and of course with SAARC, with our own immediate neighboring countries. All these multilateral forums, we have been, at the forefront in the last 2 months to make sure that, the world hears our voice, gets our wisdom. PM mentioned Ayurveda, PM mentioned yoga, PM mentioned, as you rightly said, our modern day wonder of democracy, decisiveness, and discipline, and how all these three can combine together. PM mentioned our online transfer of expertise and knowledge to other developing countries. So this is the time when they're looking for help, Mark, because the UN is saying that Africa, which has actually got the largest number of NAM members as a regional grouping, is going to have 3 lakh or more casualties if coronavirus is allowed to spread without it being contained.
Yes, Dr. Cholia, you did mention
that. As a leading power, we want to give and help these countries so that they do not see any of these body counts that people are foreseeing.
Yes, you did mention how the Prime Minister addressed this summit. It's actually the first time he's done so, and he also called for a new world order in a sense, post-COVID, because and you did mention the strength of multilateralism. Also, this is in a form South-South cooperation. It's developing countries, and we are definitely the largest in the game, in a sense. So this is a significant forum for a post-world, let's say, a reworking of the system, in a sense, where we require to have reforms of multilateral institutions.
Very much so, Mark. We have always been a big moral voice within. Through using platforms like NAM, but it's especially relevant now because some of the biggest powers, and Prime Minister has referred to this earlier as well, some very big and powerful countries are not doing so well with regard to COVID, and they have not really put themselves forward as the best example for others to follow. We are doing a reasonably good job, compared to many other power centers in the world. India has been able to control the pandemic so far.
Yes.
We are not being boastful, but we are simply stating the facts, which is that we have got a model of social and political cooperation of the society with the state, and fairly a robust medical system that is getting its act together. And we have some good practices to share for other countries
True.
to emulate.
So let me come in on that, because this is a point which is important to talk about. The Prime Minister mentioning that India is the pharmacy of the world, and we have some practices, as you said, Ayurveda is one of them, where we, simple remedies to boost immunities. All these are very much in demand at this point in time. And when the world is sort of pulled back economically because of the COVID crisis, here's a chance, for Indian pharmacies or pharmaceutical companies rather to take a step forward, and even our traditional methods of medication to take a step forward, because they're acceptable in dealing with respiratory illnesses, and we have some sort of results as well to show that it's positive. Apart from that, India has already, as the Prime Minister was saying, been helping a lot of these countries, 59 of them being NAM countries, with medications. In a sense, we're already playing the role.
Yes, Mark, very much so, but it needs to be re-emphasized. And I think the NAM summit is the right forum for the whole world to hear this, because, PM also mentioned some negative coverage and, fake news about India and all these things which have been spread by some malign interests. So it's important. Yes. And the health products that the PM mentioned, timely access to health products and healthcare, this is where India has a lead. We have an advantage, and we have a kind of advanced manufacturing capacity. Even with vaccines, Mark, I mean, we have the capacity to help the whole of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, not to mention the developed countries which are also looking for our help. I mean, if you look at, for example, the Oxford University cooperation with the Serum Institute in Pune, Maharashtra, is one of the likely, rays of hope for the whole of humanity that we can find a vaccine. So Absolutely. India has a foothold in all the solutions.
It's not science that India has no expertise in. Creating vaccines, we are pretty good at it. We have had that ability. I mean, even new vaccines, we can be at the forefront. This is not something that it's a game where we have to catch up. We are right up there actually, and we can definitely take advantage of this time when the world is looking for a new vaccine. Possibly, we are in the race. We don't know what's actually happening. We are hearing news that we could be in the race where, the vaccine can actually even emerge from India. And that would be a huge boost. But apart from that, let's put into perspective multilateralism itself. What do you think? I mean, there was the relevance of NAM in a post, bipolar world. What is the relevance of NAM? People are going to ask now. We see that NAM has got a new relevance after COVID.
Look, Mark, I think institutions are sticky, even if they outlive their original, purpose, they still manage to be forums where large groups of countries can come together. They have formal mechanisms like summits and ministerials and dialogues and all these things. So at the level of disaster preparedness, we are promoting NAM mechanisms. At the level of the sharing of medical practices, we can use NAM. NAM can also become a means by which we can consolidate how frugal innovation can help, because all these developing countries cannot afford to have massive, healthcare budgets. We don't have those. Yes. And secondly, the bailouts, even the economic bailouts that are coming out as a cushion against the losses being caused to industry and agriculture and service sectors. Again, there we must find our own path, which is under conditions of scarcity and limited resources. So right. I think these are areas where, you cannot have, for example, you cannot compare Australia and Angola.
Okay.
But you can compare Angola and India. And there's more that Angola can learn from India than from Australia. Just to give one example. So I think the South-South model. is going to
Dr.
become more
Cholia,
relevant.
I'm told that Praful Ketkar is also joining us in this discussion. He is editor of Organizer. He's also on Skype. Thanks for being with us. How would you look at, the Prime Minister's speech? It's been some time now where, the Prime Minister has addressed an international gathering under these circumstances, and clear messages coming out where, we understand the role of NAM is to promote multilateralism, to get about cooperation in the fight against COVID, and then India's examples, where India has definitely done its bit. With 1/6 of humanity here, we have contained the virus to a large extent. Mr. Ketkar.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. There is a dual relevance to this message that Prime Minister has given through to this video conferencing message to the NAM summit. Post Cold War, there was always a discussion about the relevance of NAM.
Yes.
Because NAM, came into existence as a counter to this classical bipolarity between the USSR and the USA. After the collapse of USSR, there was always this question. Now, after dealing with SAARC, then BRICS, then G20, now Prime Minister has given some hope for NAM also, because now in the post COVID-19 situation, perhaps we will see a new kind of trade war, new kind of Cold War,
yes,
between newly challenging power called China. And perhaps there will be greater relevance for the countries to come together on various multilateral forums, and we will have to reinvent multilateralism, because G77 and NAM had a specific context of 1960s and 70s and 80s of Cold War. But now in the change scenario, where the ideology per se is not drastically different, but the competition for monopoly over markets through supply chain is going to be a critical value. And there, the debt colonialism that already the maritime countries, especially in Indian Ocean, they are talking about, or the South-South cooperation that was the dialogue of 1970s and 80s, that will have to be reinvented. And on medical and health front, Prime Minister has certainly opened up new windows for reinventing NAM.
Absolutely. So reinvention is the key word, Mr. Praful Ketkar, and the Prime Minister did give some sort of a signal. NAM should be more inclusive, is what he said. And he did mention about India being 1/6 of humanity, and he talked about reforms under the current time and multilateralism. So NAM can actually be a collective voice with 120 countries on the bigger stage of the United Nations, saying that, it's time. The time has come. Post-COVID, let's reform.
Yes. See, we need to understand that since 1955, when the idea of NAM was conceptualized in Indonesia, since then, it was an evolutionary process. There were always ups and downs. It was not a very tight, compartmentalized kind of organization. But it was always seen as the organization of newly decolonized world. It was always seen as the organization of South-South cooperation. It was always seen as the cooperation between the newly independent countries of Asia and Africa. In this context, now those countries cannot carry the baggage of colonialism, but now they have to guard themselves and engage to the new world order that will emerge post COVID-19. Where China will be a major player in terms of not just controlling the supply chain, but also the entire financial capital, because it has already hurt US and Europe a lot. So there there are more than 32 countries who are already in the very entrenched debt trap of China. So how they are going to deal with this? They will have to deal with it collectively.
Mr. Ketkar, we are pressed for time and we need to go on for the next discussion, for which you are also going to be with us. But we are also joined by Dr. V.K. Paul, member Niti Aayog, and I'd like to get his reaction on this, because the Prime Minister did talk about health capacities of developing countries that need to be built These are messages that are coming out of COVID, and this is a forum of South-South cooperation, as both our other guests were saying, sir. Go ahead, sir.
The Prime Minister has given a call for global solidarity in our global fight against this calamity that is that we are all facing today. And in that, he has asserted the role that India has played so far, and the role that India can play in the larger fraternity of nations. The focus is on sharing best practices, sharing knowledge, sharing scientific products such as the vaccines and drugs. And there, the large body of the NAM fraternity looks upon India as a leader and as a front runner in terms of looking at solutions. Already, the way India approached the pandemic in our own country is seen to be the model which the South Asia has followed. All our neighboring countries are broadly on the same lines, and they look upon India for taking initiatives and bringing out the people's based approach to addressing the pandemic, and also the approach that India took for going in for an early lockdown is been followed by other countries in the neighborhood.
Right.
So he has sent out a message for affordable medicines, affordable remedies, and has talked about global solidarity against the pandemic.
Right. I'd like to thank at this point in time Dr. Sriram Cholia for joining us on this discussion. Thanks, Dr. Cholia, for your inputs. And we move on now to our next segment in News Night. Addressing the summit, Dr. Tedros, the WHO DG, had called upon the world, in fact, to come together to meet the Sustainable Development Goals and to strengthen multilateralism, another point that the Prime Minister had highlighted also.
Public health crises like COVID-19 jeopardize hard-won development gains and hamper progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. At this critical juncture of the pandemic, all countries and stakeholders, including those from the private sector, must work together to ensure that no one is left behind. Strengthening the values of multilateralism and international cooperation, which underpin the charter of the non-aligned movement, is key at this critical moment.
So moving on to our next story then, the railways are not charging any fare from workers who are seeking to return to their homes during the lockdown. 85% of the charges are being borne by the railways. The state governments are expected to pay the remaining 15%. Shramik trains are being operated on the request of state governments, and no open sale of tickets as state governments. They have to decide who's going to travel. Here's our report.
अच्छा हुआ कि हम लोग को ट्रेन चालू करके दी, हम लोग गांव जा रहे हैं, हम लोग को बहुत खुशी हो रही है कि हम अपने गांव पहुंच जाएं। गोरखपुर के लिए गाड़ी जा रही है, इसके लिए हम आए हैं, बहुत खुशी हो रही है।
These are those laborers who have been stranded in different states after lockdown came into force. Now that they are finally getting chance to go home, the happiness writ large on their faces. On the request of states, the centre and railways have made these arrangements. But politics has started on the return of stranded labourers. Reports of stranded labourers being charged for their fare of return journey home from different states has led to political slugfest, and the centre has clarified that no charges are being levied from labourers.
हमारी गाइडलाइंस ने क्लियरली कहा है कि इन्फेक्शियस डिजीज मैनेजमेंट के भाग के रूप में जो मनुष्य जहां है वहीं रहे। स्टेट की रिक्वेस्ट के तहत उन लोगों को स्पेशल ट्रेन चलाने की हमने परमिशन दी। गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया हो या रेलवेज हो, किसी भी कोशिश में हमने कभी भी कोई भी वर्कर से चार्ज करने की बात नहीं की है। हमने 85% जो पूरी ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का कॉस्ट बियर किया जाता है, वह 85% जो है वो रेलवेज बियर करती हैं, 15% स्टेट को बियर करना है। और उसी प्रोसेस और बेस्ड ऑन स्टेट्स रिक्वेस्ट जो ये प्रोसेस शुरू हुआ है कि जो कुछ लिमिटेड पैसेंजर, जो स्टैंडर्ड पैसेंजर्स हैं, माइग्रेंट लेबरर्स हैं, जिनको लिमिटेड लोगों को लेके जाना है फॉर सम वेरी पर्टिकुलर रीजन, उसको स्टेट गवर्नमेंट उसी तहत में कोऑर्डिनेट भी कर रही हैं, एक्सेप्ट फॉर 1 or 2 states.
Railways are running Shramik special trains for movement of stranded persons on the request from concerned state governments. Railways and state governments have appointed nodal officers for coordination and smooth operation. Passengers have to mandatorily wear face cover, follow social distancing norms and other precautions. Congress Party's offer to pay for the tickets of migrant workers becomes meaningless with the railways and state governments sharing the cost of travel of migrant workers. In its directives, Kerala government has said that those who can afford it should be charged for the travel. With political slugfest on this issue at its peak, BJP has attacked the Congress on this issue and alleged that Congress was playing politics over such a sensitive issue. BJP spokesperson Sambit Patra in a tweet cornered Rahul Gandhi and said, "Rahul Gandhi ji, I have attached guidelines of MHA which clearly state that no tickets to be sold at any station. Railways has subsidized 85% and state government to pay 15%. The state government can pay for the tickets. Madhya Pradesh's BJP government is paying. Ask Congress state governments to follow suit."
85% जो खर्चा है वो केंद्र उठाएगा, 15% राज्य सरकार देंगे. इसमें कोई कंफ्यूजन नहीं है. लेकिन कांग्रेस पार्टी इस पर सियासत कर रही है. अभी तक इतने दिन से कोरोना वायरस से पूरा देश लड़ रहा है, उसमें कांग्रेस का कोई कंट्रीब्यूशन नहीं है सहयोग में. लेकिन जब अब हम कोरोना पर निर्णायक लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं तो कांग्रेस पार्टी ये कहकर कि हम रेलवे का पैसा हम जमा करेंगे, कंफ्यूजन पैदा कर रही है.
Meanwhile, chief ministers of several states have lauded the initiative of the centre and said that in this time of crisis, the centre has taken this sensitive step. Several states like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Bihar and Madhya Pradesh have talked of bearing the entire cost, while there are some states who have not yet taken any decision in this regard. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar said that the state government will bear the expenses of the workers returning home.
केंद्र सरकार को इस बात के लिए धन्यवाद देते हैं कि रेलगाड़ी के माध्यम से ही हमारे जो प्रवासी बाहर फंसे हुए हैं, बिहार के रहने वाले लोग वहाँ चाहे छात्र हों या मजदूर हों या कोई पर्यटक हो या कोई भी हो, तो ट्रेन से ही आने की सुविधा उनके लिए बेहतर होगी. ये व्यवस्था कर दी गई और पिछले 2 दिनों से ये सिलसिला प्रारंभ भी हो गया. जानकारी दे दें कि उसके लिए जो भी स्टूडेंट आ रहे हैं उनको कोई रेल का भाड़ा नहीं देना है. राज्य सरकार रेलवे को पैसा दे रही है.
Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh Shivraj Singh Chauhan also talked of bearing the entire cost of labourers' journey back home. In a tweet, he said, "We have till now sent over 60,000 labourers to their homes, taking their full care. This is not all. We have sent back our guest labourers to their own states with respect. Madhya Pradesh has already started the work of bringing back stranded labourers from different states at government expense. It is pertinent to note that railways have till now run Shramik special trains from different parts of the country, and in this time of crisis, railways have discharged their social responsibility of providing safe and convenient travel to the poorest of the poor."
बहुत कम समय में पुलिस स्टेशन वाइज हमने बूथ ओपन करके सबका रजिस्ट्रेशन करवाया, रजिस्ट्रेशन करके डाटा बनाया. डाटा बनाने के बाद में जो कुछ भी उसके नॉर्म्स प्रोसीजर्स है, हर एक का मेडिकल स्क्रीनिंग करके एक बहुत थोड़े समय में हमने पूरे सब जितने अथॉरिटीज़ है गवर्नमेंट के सबके साथ में मिलके बड़ा टास्क अकम्प्लिश किया है.
Railways in the running of these special trains has ensured to follow the coronavirus lockdown rules and has put one berth in every coach empty, following physical distancing rules. Trains are fully locked till the time migrant labourers reach their destination, and on return, the entire train comes empty. According to railway sources, migrant workers are given free food and bottled drinking water. Meanwhile, those migrant workers are reaching their destination are first screened by the local administration and then sent to the quarantine centre. Bureau Report, DD News.
So in focus then in this discussion is this. Why politics in times of crisis? That's the question in focus. And to discuss this, we have Dr. V.K. Paul, member Niti Aayog, and Praful Ketkar, editor-organizer, with us. We'll start with you, Dr. V.K. Paul. The first question that people would be concerned about is that there are so many people who are traveling in these trains. Of course, we know that social distancing norms are being followed. They are all wearing masks. But is it a cause of concern? I mean, we managed to contain the virus. Is this a chance, that it can spread?
Well, I think this action should be seen as a humanitarian response in times of crisis. Our brothers and sisters who are in a state other than their home state and away from home need to go back in these times, and this is their wish and desire, and rightly so. But what is important is to realize that this mobilization is taking place following very systematic process. Standard operating guidelines, as you heard from the feature just now, are being followed. Social distancing is being maintained while traveling. Masks are being worn. At the same time, when the migrant laborers are reaching the point of disembarkation, there is a screening that goes on, and these individuals will be under quarantine. If we follow this procedure effectively, there is practically no chance that we would face any difficulty in the places where the migrant laborers would reach. But it is the duty of the administration, and even more so of the persons, to follow the norms and the guidelines that are being given. It is a very critical and a delicate balance between opening up an opportunity to reach home, but at the same time it is a responsibility that this effort and this necessity is balanced with strict following of the guidelines, and also the quarantine procedures must be implemented optimally by the administration, by people, and it is a duty of the society and people around those villages and places that they are looked after well, so that in quarantine the people do not face any undue difficulty.
Absolutely. Praful Ketkar, so we've seen that the trains are running, we've seen that the people are on the trains, there are logistical issues involved, but despite all that, everything running smoothly, there's politics being played over it, which is unfortunate. We also heard Dr. V.K. Paul saying that, what procedures have been put in place, because even after they reach their destinations, they have to go through further screening, quarantine. So, all best efforts have been put forward. But at a time like this, there's no opportunity being missed to sort of put the government in a bad light. Of course, that's the role of the opposition, one would say, but at a time like this, the question comes.
No, I don't think this is the role of the opposition. The role of the opposition is to corner the government if government is doing wrong. See, we have to see this entire issue in two phases. In the first phases, when certain political forces tried to mobilize the laborers with the rumor mongering, and then created a panic. See, first you said why only for the privileged students? Why you are moving only students and the people who are stranded outside, who have gone for us? Now, when the labor, we have created around 21,000 labor camps all over India. The government as well as society, various social organizations are taking care of them. But still, the rumor mongering, the poor are dying kind of narrative was going on. I agree that it is a humanitarian initiative. It is not just about their food security. It is also about the psychological need to go back home, have comfortable atmosphere with the family members. That is also a critical factor, and that's why this step is taken. This is a huge historic step taken by the center, and especially I should commend the railways. The entire railway, Indian Railway has played a very critical role, either by creating the quarantine zones within railway guest house and railway bogies, but at the same time now this important initiative of making so huge transfer of population, but still with a very meticulous health protocol. So I think everybody should support.
It should be appreciated, definitely, and people should be a part of it. They should.
Yeah. We should play a very supportive role in communicating. There are certain places where deliberate miscommunication was done. There are instances in Mumbai, in some southern states, where people were called in. The process is very clearly defined. You have to register. Every state government has created a nodal agency to register in this process, and as per your turn, the state government will give you the official ticket, for which the cost will be 85% will be borne by the center, 15% that is related to the registration fees, and initial food related arrangement that's also part by the state government.
Absolutely.
So the division is very clear. I just wish no petty politics on this issue, because we have to do this very, very cautiously. One single mistake and 82% of green and orange zone can again go back to somewhere ready.
And we don't want unrest also amongst the migrant workers, and that can also create, you know, a sort of a situation. But Dr. Paul, let's look at also, I mean, the government has now also given permission to bring stranded Indians abroad back home, and this will be done in a phased manner and the embassies and the high commissions will prepare lists. This is also another important thing, but the point is that when are we done with you know, our concerns about COVID right now, that we're all this, why now is the question?
Well, and our concerns regarding COVID stay. They are always there, but the time has come that post lockdown we do look after humanitarian concerns and needs that had to be you know, be halted in a given situation. Now again, to get back Indians who are stranded abroad and who want to come home is a humanitarian issue. And this, in a way, it is also their right, and it is a duty of the government to assist that process. What is again very important is the guidelines that have been laid down. For example, it will be only the asymptomatic individuals who would travel, and all precautions will be taken during this travel, which will happen in a structured way, phased way, maintaining social distancing and all the other precautions. But more importantly, when they arrive in India, they are quarantined and they are tested negative before they visit their families and go into the community. Now, if you follow these scientific guidelines, it is worth taking, you know, this initiative, which is important again for tiding over the crisis from the point of view of the families whose loved ones are in another country.
A final word from you, Praful Ketkar, because this is a time, you know, when the lockdown 3.0 has started. There are a lot of economic activities that have begun. People are looking at with hope, you know, at the restart of their lives to, you know, pick up pace once again, get back their finances organized. This is a time when the world should, when the country should be standing together, definitely, wouldn't you say?
Yes. And now, because this, you know, Shramik trains is just one issue, this second phase will start about the, you know, people who are stranded outside India and registered. Again, there is a due registration process. There is, you know, very detailed protocol regarding this. In the first phase, only 15,000 people will be coming in first 7 days. So we have to be very careful about communicating these numbers and protocols. No politics, no political, you know, brownie points at this juncture. We are, otherwise we will be playing with the lives of thousands and lakhs of people. So we have to be very careful. You know, if you want to give suggestions, play a constructive role. But please, you know, the way Maharashtra or Kerala government tried to do, and in fact they tried to, you know, after taking some money, they tried to blame the center. It's a very bad trend. This is a, you know, this is a test for our cooperative federalism.
Thanks very much, Praful Ketkar and Dr. V.K. Paul, for helping us understand this important subject at a time like this. Lockdown 3.0, politics being played at the current time, and as Dr. Paul says, you know, citizens have an important responsibility as well, and let us all maintain that. Moving on to our next story then. As we have entered the third phase of the lockdown, The government is now working towards facilitating the return of Indian nationals stranded abroad. The operation will be conducted on compelling grounds in a phased manner. The operation will begin from the 7th of this month. The travel would be arranged by aircraft and naval ships. The standard operating procedure has been prepared. Indian embassies and high commissions are preparing the lists of distressed Indian citizens. This facility will be made available on a payment basis. Non-scheduled commercial flights would be arranged for the air travel. The passengers will be screened before they board the flights, and only asymptomatic passengers will be allowed to travel. Upon reaching, everyone will have to register on the Arogya Setu app. They will be screened once again, and after the screening, the passengers will be quarantined for 14 days. They will be kept either in a hospital or in an institutional quarantine. And another round of tests will be done after 14 days, depending upon which further action will be taken according to the health protocols. The Ministries of External Affairs and Civil Aviation will share a detailed information about this through their websites. The state governments have been advised to make arrangements including testing, quarantine, onward movement of the returning Indians in their respective states. Three CRPF personnel were martyred and 2 others injured when terrorists opened fire on them at a checkpoint in Kupwara. This is a day after 5 security personnel lost their lives during an encounter in the district. A teenaged civilian, reportedly of unsound mental condition, was also killed in the exchange of fire between the security forces and the ultras. The terrorists opened fire on a Naka party of the Central Reserve Police Force at Wangam Kajiabad in Kralgund area of the district. The brief shootout ensued, and the CRPF personnel opened retaliatory firing. A 15-year-old civilian boy identified as Mohammed Hazim Bhatt was also found dead on the scene of the incident, adding that he was reportedly mentally challenged. Unfortunately, the area has been cordoned off and additional forces have been rushed there to track down the assailants. This was the second major damage inflicted by terrorists on security forces in Kupwara district within 48 hours. 5 army personnel, including 2 officers and a Jammu and Kashmir policeman, were martyred during an encounter with the militants on Saturday. This happened in Handwara as well. Earlier in the day, DD News had spoken exclusively to the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, and speaking on the Handwara attack, he said that India has and is always prepared to fight any challenges. They were sure that infiltration activities would take place as soon as the snow starts melting, but India is ready and is conducting an investigation to foil any such attempts. He thanked the people of Kashmir for their support and faith in the army.
हमें तो कभी भी ये उम्मीद नहीं थी कि कोरोना के दौरान पाकिस्तान इन्फिल्ट्रेशन को रोक देगा या कश्मीर में माहौल बिगाड़ने की कोशिश नहीं करेगा। तो इसके लिए हमारी सेना पूर्ण रूप से तैयार थी। हमें पूरा यकीन था कि इन्फिल्ट्रेशन की कार्रवाई जैसे ही बर्फ़ पिघलना शुरू होगी, इन्फिल्ट्रेशन होगी। इसके लिए हम तैयार थे और उसी के तहत लगातार कार्रवाई चलती जा रही है। जनवरी से और अप्रैल के महीने में किस तरह की सफलता मिली है सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस को जम्मू कश्मीर में, और हमें अगर इस वक्त सफलता मिल रही है तो वो मिल रही है क्योंकि जम्मू कश्मीर की जो आवाम है वो हमारे साथ है, वो हमारा सहयोग कर रही है।
And he highlighted the importance of motivation to any frontline soldiers. It is the role of armed forces that armed forces are adept at, and they collectively thought it appropriate to share that with the frontline COVID warriors as well.
The corona warriors who are in the front line need to remain motivated. They must have sufficient fervor in them to go on. And for that we felt that if we as the armed forces can do something to motivate them, to keep them rejuvenated, what is it that we can do? And the little that we could do is give them the support. We do know how to motivate people because we constantly motivate our soldiers.
General Rawat also said that the armed forces are assisting the health ministry in any way necessary. The army medical infrastructure has been adapted to assist civilian hospitals in different parts of the country.
We are working with the other government agencies, particularly in sync with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, because they are the ones who are actually leading the fight. and they keep giving us guidelines, they keep giving us some kind of an assessment as to what is likely to happen in the future. And keeping that in mind, we are preparing ourselves. We have prepared a number of isolation and quarantine facilities. We have created special hospitals for treating COVID patients in the northern region, southern, eastern, western and central India. We are constantly upgrading our facilities, and let me assure you that even at the cost of inconveniencing our own soldiers, sailors and airmen, we will make sure that we provide adequate support to our people, to our citizens.
And homage was paid to the martyred soldiers who laid down their lives in Kashmir, in Handwara. You can see their names there: Rajesh Kumar, Ashutosh Sharma, rank Anuj Sood, Major, Colonel Ashutosh Sharma. Well, the third phase of the nationwide lockdown to combat COVID-19 began today. Let's look at the relaxations announced by the centre to support economic activities.
The third phase of the nationwide lockdown to contain the spread of COVID-19 started on Monday, May 4th. Lockdown 3.0 will last till May 17th. However, the central government has announced several relaxations to support economic activities. The Ministry of Home Affairs relaxation guidelines have allowed opening of shops selling non-essential goods in green and orange zones. However, they will still not be available in red zones. Many state governments have implemented the concessions after the centre's new guidelines.
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी जैसे कहा था कि इट इज अबाउट जान भी जहान भी, तो कैसे हम अपने सिस्टम्स को रिवाइव करते हुए इस डिजीज को मैनेज करें, जब आज हम ईजिंग आउट कर रहे हैं जो स्टैगर्ड वे में रेड, ऑरेंज या ग्रीन जोन में जो हमने रिलैक्सेशंस की बात की है, आपके द्वारा हम फिर कम्युनिटी से रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहेंगे कि दिस इज ए प्रोसेस वेयर एवरीवन इज ए स्टेक होल्डर.
The national capital saw an increase in the number of vehicles on the road on Monday after the government announced several relaxations.
While all the districts in Delhi are in the red zone, there have been some relaxations that have been given in areas which fall outside the containment zone. Plumber shops, mechanic shops, there are stationery and optical shops, and also telecom service provider shops that are open in areas which fall in the relaxation zone, which are outside the containment zone. There are offices of the Delhi government which fall in the essential services that are functioning with full strength. Besides that, there have been directives given for the private offices to be open with 33% strength.
As the Delhi government eased off some restrictions in the capital, Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan expressed his unhappiness over the step. The Delhi government reopened liquor shops that resulted into people floating social distancing norms and overcrowding them.
व्यक्तिगत तौर पर मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि दिल्ली भी देश के गिने चुने उन प्रदेशों में से है जहां की कोरोना की स्थिति को अभी काबू करने के लिए बहुत कुछ और ज़्यादा गंभीरता से करने की आवश्यकता है, और उस नाते इस लॉकडाउन 3 के अंदर दिल्ली जैसी जगह में मेरे विचार में व्यक्तिगत तौर पर कम से कम छूट जो है इसको अभी लिबरलाइज करने के लिए दी जानी चाहिए.
The country's financial capital Mumbai too has seen some relaxations in restrictions as lockdown 3.0 comes into effect.
Earlier, there was 3 zones in the state, that is red, orange and green, but the state government has added 2 more zones, and that is containment zone as well as the other one is Mumbai region and Pune region zone. Now, obviously, the government want to start the economic activity in the state, and that's the reason these 2 regions are quite important. That's the reason the government has taken this decision. Well, in these areas also, wherever the containment zones are there, the government have actually following all the rules as was stipulated by the central government. But in spite of that, in some red zones, the shops will be allowed to open, and certain restrictions have been lifted even in the red zone.
The fish market in Goa, which figures in the green zone, was opened from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Monday. Special attention was given to following social distancing norms. Saloons were opened in Gurugram, Haryana. As per the revised lockdown guidelines issued by the Home Ministry, only 1 customer is allowed inside at a time under social distancing rules. Needless to say, the saloon has to maintain highest standards of hygiene. Following revised guidelines by the Karnataka government, textile factory workers were seen getting down to work in Penia industrial area of Bangalore.
The Bangalore City Corporation has made it mandatory that people must wear masks when they venture out of their homes. Else, they will attract a fine of rupees up to 1,000. So on the day when the lockdown norms have been relaxed, when people ventured out of their homes today, many ended up paying huge fines. The Bangalore City Corporation admitted to collecting over 2 lakh rupees of fine today.
In Kerala's capital Thiruvananthapuram, shops selling essential and non-essential items were open. However, the ban is still in force on single and multi-brand retail malls. People and vehicles were seen moving around in Guwahati after the state government had removed many restrictions in the northeastern state of Assam. Commercial establishments have been opened across the country depending on the classification of zones into red, orange and green. And while social distancing is being followed, economic activities have restarted, keeping in mind the mantra Jaan Bhi Jahan Bhi. Bureau Report, DD India, DD News.
Some more international news now, and Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has decided to extend the emergency to end of this month. And Abe, in fact, cited his advisors as saying that Japan had not seen the explosive surge in infections seen in some other countries, but the number of new infection cases had not fallen enough, and there were regions where the medical system is facing some strain. And with that, we conclude News Night for tonight. Thanks very much for being with us. Namaskar.